I never thought humiliation could be so loud. It happened on a Saturday afternoon at my sister-in-law's birthday brunch, the kind of place with white plates, clinking glasses, and conversations that pause just long enough for cruelty to land. I was standing beside my husband, Mark, smiling politely, when his sister Lauren raised her glass and said, "We should thank Emma for finally dressing appropriately for once. Marriage really does fix people." Laughter rippled around the table. I felt my face burn. I waited for Mark to say something, anything. He didn't. He squeezed my hand under the table, a silent signal to stay calm, to let it go, to not make a scene. In that moment, something inside me hardened. This wasn't new. Lauren had always treated me like an accessory Mark picked up by mistake. Comments about my job being cute, jokes about how long I would last, little digs disguised as concern. Each time, Mark promised to talk to her later. Each time, later never came. At brunch, Lauren kept going. She talked about how family meant loyalty, how outsiders should know their place, how some people marry up and forget where they came from. Every sentence felt aimed directly at me. I glanced at Mark again. He stared at his plate. After dessert, Lauren leaned over and said quietly, "You should be grateful we include you at all." Mark heard it. I know he did. He still said nothing. That was the moment I decided I was done being quiet, not dramatic, not explosive, just done. I smiled, excused myself to the restroom, and looked at my reflection. I didn't cry. I didn't fix my makeup. I made a decision. On the drive home, Mark finally spoke. He said Lauren didn't mean it, that she was stressed, that I knew how she was. He said I should be the bigger person. I asked him one simple question. Why is being the bigger person always my job? He had no answer. He told me he loved me and that family was complicated. I nodded, already planning something he couldn't see. What Mark didn't realize was that while he worked in sales and Lauren ran her boutique with help from their parents, I handled the finances for Mark's consulting business. I paid the bills, managed the accounts, tracked expenses, and filed taxes. I knew exactly how much money moved through our lives and where it went. I also knew that Lauren's boutique, the one she bragged about endlessly, survived mostly because Mark quietly funneled money into it. Loans labeled temporary. Expenses written off as favors. Family helping family. I never interfered before because I thought loyalty mattered. That silence ended at brunch. Over the next few weeks, I did nothing outwardly different. I attended dinners. I smiled at Lauren. I listened while she talked about success and independence. Meanwhile, I organized records, not to lie, not to manipulate. Just to see everything clearly. And what I saw was a mess. Unpaid taxes, personal expenses buried as business costs, money moved without documentation, risks that could destroy us if exposed. One night, I sat Mark down. I told him I was uncomfortable with how entangled everything had become. I told him we needed boundaries. He brushed it off. He said Lauren needed help. He said it would be cruel to pull support now. I asked him again, calmly, whose side he was on when his sister humiliated his wife in public. He got defensive. He said I was making him choose. I said he already had. That was the last conversation before I acted. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I simply stopped protecting what wasn't mine to protect. When tax season came, I filed everything exactly as it was. No creative smoothing. No gentle corrections, just facts. I documented the transfers. I separated accounts. I followed the rules I was supposed to follow all along. The fallout didn't happen immediately. It never does. It started with letters, then calls, then panic. Lauren called Mark crying, asking what happened, why people were asking questions. Mark came home pale, holding an envelope, finally understanding the weight of his silence at that brunch table. He asked me if I could fix it. I looked at him and said, "I already tried." "You told me to let it go." By the time the truth fully surfaced, everyone knew. Lauren stopped laughing. Mark stopped excusing, and I stopped shrinking. My revenge wasn't loud, but it was complete. I didn't destroy anyone. I just refused to keep paying the price for disrespect. I learned that dignity grows when silence ends, that self-respect matters more than peace, and that choosing yourself once can echo for years, long after the laughter fades away. The first real crack came on a Tuesday morning when Mark didn't go to work. He sat at the kitchen table staring at his phone, refreshing his email like bad news might disappear if he caught it fast enough. I poured coffee and watched him from across the room, noticing how quiet he was without Lauren's voice in his ear telling him what was reasonable. He finally looked up and asked me if I had known this could happen. I told him yes. I had known for years. I just didn't think he would let it go this far. He accused me of setting a trap. I reminded him traps require bait and secrecy. I had done neither. Everything I filed was accurate. Every number was real. The only thing that changed was my willingness to keep cleaning up after decisions I didn't make. He said families don't treat each other like this. I said families don't humiliate each other in public and expect silence in return. That was when he went quiet, the kind of quiet that means something is finally sinking in. Lauren showed up 2 days later without calling. She stood in our doorway with sunglasses on, arms crossed, trying to look composed. I let her in. She didn't waste time. She said I knew what I was doing, that I was jealous, that I had always wanted to embarrass her. She said Mark never should have married me. I listened until she ran out of breath. Then I asked her a single question. Did you enjoy humiliating me at brunch? She scoffed and said I was too sensitive. I told her sensitivity wasn't the issue. Accountability was. She laughed, the same laugh she used at that table, and said I thought I was smarter than everyone. I told her I didn't think that. I just knew the rules. And the rules don't bend because someone is loud, charming, or related by blood. She called me vindictive. I said maybe. Or maybe I was just done pretending respect didn't matter. She left without saying goodbye. Mark watched the whole thing like a spectator at his own life. That night, he admitted he had spent years smoothing things over, believing silence kept peace. He said he didn't realize how much it cost me. I told him the cost was my dignity, paid in small installments every time he chose comfort over confrontation. He asked if we could fix this. I said I didn't know. Trust doesn't reset just because consequences arrive. The investigation dragged on. Lauren's boutique closed quietly. Their parents stopped calling. Invitations dried up. Mark's business survived barely because it was finally clean. We went to counseling. Some sessions were hopeful. Others felt like an autopsy. He apologized for not standing up for me. I believed he was sorry. I wasn't sure it was enough. One evening, months later, we attended a friend's gathering. Someone made an offhand joke at my expense. Before I could react, Mark spoke up. Calmly, firmly. He said that wasn't funny. The room shifted. The joke died. I felt something loosen in my chest. It wasn't victory. It was recognition. I learned something through all of this. Revenge doesn't have to be cruel to be powerful. It can be quiet, methodical, rooted in truth. It can look like refusing to lie for people who wouldn't defend you. It can look like letting consequences do their job while you step back into yourself. I didn't win because they lost. I won because I stopped losing. Mark and I are still together for now. The future feels honest in a way it never did before. Lauren hasn't spoken to me since. That's fine. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. I don't replay the brunch anymore. I remember it as the moment I chose myself. And every time I do, I stand a little taller, knowing silence is optional and respect is not. The strangest part came after everything settled, when there was finally space to breathe. No letters arriving in the mail. No tense phone calls. No waiting for the next shoe to drop. Just quiet. I realized how long I had lived in a low-level state of tension, constantly bracing for the next comment, the next joke, the next moment I would be expected to swallow my feelings for the sake of family harmony. Silence, real silence, felt unfamiliar at first. Then it felt like relief. Mark tried, I'll give him that. He started checking in before family events, asking how I felt, what I needed. Sometimes I could see the guilt flicker across his face, especially when something reminded him of Lauren. Other times, he seemed lighter, as if a burden he had carried without questioning was finally set down. We were learning each other again, without the buffer of excuses and obligations that had defined us for years. I didn't reach out to his parents. They didn't reach out to me. The distance spoke clearly enough. I stopped trying to manage how I was perceived. I stopped over-explaining. When people asked what happened with Lauren's boutique, I said it didn't work out and left it at that. I didn't owe anyone the full story. That was another lesson. Not every truth needs an audience to be valid. One afternoon, I ran into a woman from the brunch at the grocery store. She smiled awkwardly and said she heard things had been rough. I smiled back and said things were clearer now. She nodded like she understood more than she let on. Maybe she did. Maybe she remembered the way everyone laughed that day. Either way, it didn't matter. I didn't feel small in that aisle. I felt grounded. Mark asked me once if I would do it all again the same way. I thought about it carefully. I said yes, but sooner. I wouldn't wait for humiliation to pile up until it forced my hand. I would draw the line the first time someone crossed it, and my partner stayed silent. He didn't argue. He just nodded, absorbing the weight of that truth. What surprised me most was how little anger I carried once it was over. I expected to feel triumphant or bitter. Instead, I felt calm. The kind of calm that comes from alignment, when your actions finally match your values. I hadn't lashed out. I hadn't exaggerated. I had simply stopped protecting people who didn't protect me. That clarity stripped the situation of drama and left only facts behind. I started paying attention to myself again. I took a class I'd been putting off. I reconnected with friends I had distanced myself from because family obligations always came first. I noticed how often women around me apologized for existing, for speaking, for needing respect. I recognized myself in them and gently stopped doing it. When someone made a joke at my expense, I said I didn't find it funny. When someone crossed a boundary, I named it. The world didn't end. In fact, it got quieter. Lauren never apologized. I stopped waiting for it. Closure isn't something other people hand you. It's something you decide you're done chasing. I don't know if she ever understood why things happened the way they did. I don't need her to. Understanding isn't a prerequisite for accountability. Sometimes Mark and I talk about the future in careful, honest terms. Sometimes we sit in comfortable silence. Either way, the rules are different now. Respect is not negotiable. Silence is not love. And loyalty that costs your self-worth isn't loyalty at all. If there's one thing I know for sure, it's this. The moment you stop shrinking to make other people comfortable, the entire dynamic changes. Some people step up. Some people step away. Both outcomes tell you everything you need to know. I didn't get revenge by hurting anyone. I got it by refusing to disappear ever again.